As Donald Trump's approval rating continues to hit new historic lows every single day, the frequency with which he makes insane posts on Truth Social only continues to go up. We know this is because Donald Trump is really losing it at this point and trying to distract us from his failing economy with anything he can get to shift our focus. And the latest example of that is shifting our focus to a broken economy, to a broken judicial system, because Donald Trump has just decided he is going to take the most absurd and illegal step yet in his violation of the Constitution, and doing so in an attack on President Biden and those who tried to hold him accountable. It is incredibly scary, and we are going to get into all of it. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we can get into Donald Trump's Truth Social post, I want to add a little bit of context to what he said, his assault on our Department of Justice, with Jamie Raskin right here.
It is a brand new embarrassment to the once revered Department of Justice. It's fascinating that the president used the word BS to describe the case against him, which resulted in dozens of criminal convictions, because that was the same word that his own Attorney General, William Barr, used to describe his deranged claim that he had won the 2020 presidential election when Joe Biden beat him by more than 7 million votes, 306 to 232 in the Electoral College. That was the word that Attorney General Barr, even one of his greatest defenders, used to describe his delusional claims about how there was election fraud and election irregularities. No other president in American history has stood at the Department of Justice to proclaim an agenda of criminal prosecution and retaliation against his political foes. This thoroughly partisan and delusional diatribe was a staggering violation of the traditional boundary between independent criminal law enforcement and presidential political power. The speak we just witnessed is a desecration of the essential values of the storied department in every way. It's an insult to the thousands of professional lawyers who go to work at the Department of Justice every day to enforce the rule of law, not the personal vendettas and partisan games of a politician. President Grant and Congress created the Department of Justice in 1870, 5 years after the Civil War, in the throes of Reconstruction. It was an exercise of Congress's powers under Section 5 of the 14th Amendment, which had just been added to the Constitution 2 years before. The purpose of the department was to protect the newly freed African American population in the South against escalating violence by the Ku Klux Klan and unrepentant secessionists. Congress wanted to protect the voting rights of the emancipated population against racial disenfranchisement schemes. Now, the Department of Justice, which first set out to defend the rule of law against white supremacy and vigilante violence, has become a department of injustice, cruelty, favoritism, and unfairness. One of Trump's first acts was to try to nullify the very first sentence of the 14th Amendment, which establishes that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof is a citizen of the United States. And they tried to destroy that, leading to at least 4 federal courts invalidating this executive order: an Obama judge, a Biden judge, a Reagan judge, and even a Trump judge. And the Reagan judge said it was the easiest case he ever had to decide. You don't have to be a lawyer to know what's wrong with that executive order or any of the other ones. You just have to know how to read. And that judge was very clear about it.
Donald Trump spoke almost exclusively on the campaign trail about how Joe Biden was weaponizing the DOJ against him, how he was being unfairly prosecuted. Obviously, all of those things being a lie, but immediately, once becoming president, he snapped into action, making sure he was doing the exact things he was accusing President Biden of having done. And the latest example in this Truth Social meltdown we saw in the middle of the night from Donald Trump shows just how far he is willing to go in breaking the law to attack his political enemies. And we can see that right here. Trump wrote, "The pardons that sleepy Joe Biden gave to the unselect committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by autopin. In other words, Joe Biden did not sign them, but more importantly, he did not know anything about them. The necessary pardoning documents were not explained to or approved by Biden. He knew nothing about them, and the people that did may have committed a crime. Therefore, those on the unselect committee who destroyed and deleted all evidence obtained during their 2-year witch hunt of me and many other innocent people should fully understand that they are subject to investigation at the highest level. The fact is, they were probably responsible for the documents that were signed on their behalf without the knowledge or consent of the worst president in history of our country, crooked Joe Biden." That is Donald Trump, the president of the United States, announcing he is overriding pardons, and in the same post that he will also be pursuing criminal investigations of Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, and seemingly Joe Biden. Tell me that was not a threat of him going after the former president. The thing that Donald Trump said Joe Biden was doing to him, saying that Joe Biden broke the law and allowing these documents to be destroyed, that Joe Biden broke the law allegedly by not signing pardons that he signed, that he communicated the importance of. It is just absolute absurdity, weaponizing the justice system in a way that we have never seen. And as I've talked about since Friday when Donald Trump went to his DOJ, and I say that very specifically, his DOJ, because when he was in the building, Pam Bondi broke with historical precedent for an AG saying, we do whatever Donald Trump wants. It is Donald Trump's Department of Justice, the same accusation he made against Joe Biden that of course was never true, but is of Donald Trump. It is terrifying. And especially what this means for any other action taken to hold accountable those who attacked our Capitol on January 6th, what that means for those individuals. Will January 6th rioters walk free? It's terrifying. And Jasmine Crockett made this oh so important point. Really, it seems like a prediction at this point right here.
It's interesting that we're not having a conversation around January 6th, and we're talking about school boards, and we're talking about people that never ended up being arrested. We're talking about the process seemingly working because there were people that felt like there should be an investigation, but ultimately they did not feel like there was anything that warranted going forward. But I can tell you for sure that we as Americans watched in despair because we did not know what was going to happen on January 6th. And as a result, over 1,000 people were arrested and or convicted. But the first day, the first priority that the sitting president had was to release these criminals. So while we're talking about whether or not we're going to be safe, I want to clarify these weren't little innocent folk that were running around and were persecuted as it was made out to be. In fact, we know that the day after one of those defendants got out, he was rearrested on a firearm charge. We know that soon after another defendant got out, he was arrested for child solicitation. We know that after another one got out, he was actually killed by law enforcement in a confrontation. And we know that after another one got out, she was sentenced because of a fatal car crash that she caused. So I want to be clear. In this country, we should believe in law and order. And I am going to be honest because much like Mr. Breen, the only time that I ever entered a criminal courthouse was in defense of someone, in defense of the accused. And it is because I believe in the Constitution. I believe that everyone has the right to due process. And as a defense attorney, I should show up ready, and I am hoping that the system works. But I say hoping because nothing on this earth is perfect. And one of the things that I actually used to take a lot of issue with was the fact that I did believe that there was a two-tier justice system. This is not something that the black community somehow woke up and said, oh, this is a new thing, although we're talking about it and we're meaning it in different ways because all of a sudden you had somebody with more power than arguably anyone in the world, and somehow Lady Justice found him too. And I say Lady Justice somehow found him because it was grand juries that had to indict him. And then ultimately, he was found guilty of 34 counts of felonies, at least in one courthouse. We know that the other cases never proceeded for various reasons. We also know that when he entered into civil courthouses, he was found liable for various things. Listen, I don't want to have the American people get it twisted. I don't want them to be confused and believe that just because somebody is a prosecutor or just because somebody brings a case, that somehow that is weaponization. If they bring it forward and if the justice system works the way that it's supposed to be, Mr. Breen, you talked about how your client was found not guilty, and I'm guessing that you accept that jury's verdict.
Certainly.
You accept that jury's verdict for your client?
Absolutely.
Okay,
but
okay, but I got to move on to a few other things really quickly. Christopher Wray. Mr. Ballou, do you know who that is?
Yes.
Was Christopher Wray appointed by Joe Biden?
No, he was appointed by President Trump.
He was appointed by President Trump. Now, Christopher Wray, for those that don't know, was the head of the FBI. And Christopher Wray, was he fired by Joe Biden just because Joe Biden was a Democrat that came in?
No.
In fact, Christopher Wray left the FBI when Trump threatened to fire him, but Christopher Wray still had time on the clock, didn't he?
He did.
So any prosecutions that took place, they actually took place under the Wray FBI department. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And the last thing, I know, Mr. Chair, I'm running out of time, just real quick. The last thing that I want to ask, because we've talked about the mayor of New York, is he a Democrat or a Republican?
He's a Democrat.
And he was prosecuted under a Democratic DOJ or a Republican DOJ?
A Democratic DOJ.
Thank you so much, and I will yield. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, Ranking Member.
This is a terrifying reality that we are in, of those going free and those who will now be quite literally put on trial by Donald Trump. And we saw just yesterday, Lindsey Graham on Face the Nation, Margaret Brennan, saying that he thinks it's okay for Donald Trump to go after those who he views as his political enemies, who attempted to ruin his life, Lindsey Graham said. Holding him accountable for breaking the law was ruining his life. Now Donald Trump wants to ruin the lives of those who wished to hold him accountable, who worked to hold him accountable. That's what this is. They are going after Liz Cheney. They are going after Adam Kinzinger. They are going after Joe Biden. Wouldn't be surprised if they're going after us. It is scary, but we have to continue to call it out. This is truly frightening stuff. We're going to every single day on the show. If you want to support that, this effort that gets increasingly worrisome every day to do, but is more important because of it, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.